I don't think we are saying now it's going. Why are you going to go slow? I mean, I got my internet fixed. Why is it going slow? There it's going. There it goes. All right. I think it's now. It's just like whatever. All right. I think we're live. I don't know what's going on. My first day back and doing this again. Hi. This is Star Wars Acolyte Aftershow. I'm James Lott Jr. This is Frank Moran. He's like next to me.
Hey, everybody. I know that this has been a long time coming, and I know that there's been those fans that follow along all the JLJ Media Star Wars content saying, hey, you guys never dealt with the end of the Acolyte, episode 8. And that is correct. We had, due to scheduling conflicts, we weren't able to tackle our after show for the season finale when it premiered. And then due to other schedule conflicts afterwards, we just never really found a time that was convenient for the majority of us to get together until today. So,
True.
for those of you that are going to be following this later, you will not notice any difference. But for those that have been sticking around, thanks for your patience while we got this the completion to the Acolyte series.
Yes. And we have to shout out. We have to shout out Kim McAndrew and John Dunphy. Both who can't make it. I don't want to wait any longer. I said we gotta get it out now. We can't wait any longer. They've closed out the series, so we're gonna close the series, close it out too.
There you go. That's a wrap on John and Kim.
They're out. No, we'll see them on other shows, obviously. But everything Frank said, yes, I totally agree with all that. We were here to talk about it. It was 8 episodes. It was a season. They canceled it. So those of you thinking, well, why they canceled it? They literally, which Frank, I was like, that was a quick. They usually don't let us know things right away. That was a quick cancellation, wasn't it?
And whether there seemed to be discussions between Disney and Lucasfilm, and it seemed, at least from what the articles that I read, that a season 2 seemed to be at least in the exploratory phase. But ultimately, they switched course and decided just to cancel it.
Yeah, they're like, and that's it, kids. There's nothing else going on there. And here's the thing, Frank. As you know, as we go over it, we're going to talk about the last episode too. Of course, we're going to talk about that a little bit, and who shows up at the end. The back of the head, of course. And spoilers. If you're not watching by now, spoilers. Okay, I said that. I cover myself. What I learned, Frank, from this series, because this series, I didn't hate it, didn't like it that much either. And not because I think of wokeness or all other stuff people are gatekeeping or anything. What I've learned by this series and a few others that are okay, just like anything else, maybe not every story is for me. Makes any sense, right?
Yeah.
Maybe because you and I both can think of 10 other stories we'd like to see. Of course, I'm sure in the universe. That's fine. Everybody has one, I guess. But I think this one had. I felt like this one had some ambitions, which we'll talk about. It had some characters in it that I was like, "Ooh, I wonder about them." But overall, as a story, I don't know if I don't know if it's the acting of the lead or other stuff. It just didn't connect for me. So overall, for you, I mean, what are you thinking, Frank?
I thought there are good bones to this story, but the execution of it just did not resonate as much with me as I had hoped it would. It's we dive back into something even before the prequel trilogy to see a little bit earlier that stuff that hadn't been covered in television or film yet by Lucasfilm yet, even though it had been covered a lot in novels. And I feel like that became the big sticking point where it's once Lucas took it over, or once Disney took over, they kind of rebooted or declared everything that books, novels, comics, all that stuff was no longer canon. That was just part of like an expanded universe, but not part of the official Star Wars canon going forward. But I still feel like fans had a tough time separating stuff that they read in books that dealt with sort of that Knights of the High Republic era from from what Disney was moving forward in this iteration. And so there's like, oh, but what about this character? It doesn't line up with the timelines, blah, 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 blah. It's just, there's like, I guess Lucas has always been like whatever's only in the TV shows and the films is absolutely canon. Everything else is flimsy.
Did Marvel do the same thing? I can't remember. Did they do the same thing?
What do you mean?
Like there's comics, there's graphic novels, and
Oh yeah.
Marvel too. Did they do the same thing? Is it similar to that or no?
Well, I mean, I guess because like the movies and the TV shows kind of adapt storylines, but they kind of mix them a little bit from the comics. Um, so there's not. I think Marvel's kind of set the template where they will adapt storylines, but they will put their own spin on it, depending on the medium that they're adapting it to. So I think it's educated fans that you're not going to see a story from the comics or a graphic novel come to the screen exactly as it's presented on the page.
I guess we're not there yet with Star Wars, obviously, and not everybody read the books. I mean, I read them. I meant many of the books because I like reading, so I read. But I know a lot of folks, and if you go to a store, you'll see there are just like hundreds of books out there. Like where do I start? But there are many of us who do read the books, and there you go. Hi, Leopardus. Hello, people who are watching in chat. I thought they were going to cancel it, but the show is not as bad as Boba Fett. Uh,
Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like not as I feel like I would put Boba Fett worse than this, only because my enthusiasm and enjoyment for Boba Fett as a character and wanting to see this story told of what happens as he escapes from the Sarlacc pit, yeah, it was high. And then what was delivered just underwhelmed my very high expectations.
as they say in Bring It On, you can be overwhelmed, you can be underwhelmed. Can you just be whelmed? I
Yeah.
think in Europe, I was just whelmed, Frank, on that one. Yeah, the Boba Fett was a fun after show. We did the after show, folks, and we did the after show for that too. That was fun because it was cuckoo crazy. Because every episode we get together, like, what did we just watch? And for me, like you, I like this show. There were characters that were interesting that we would love to see more of or develop differently. And then there was just like two episodes of something else, and episode of this, and all of a sudden, where's Danny Trejo? He was there for a second. It was just in an episode with the famous nod of life happens where he says nothing. He's the lead character. I mean, don't get started on that. That was just so. I feel like I might be with you. That might be lesser than this too, just because this actually act like there was a story. They had a story. They had several stories they were trying to tell, and the main one was of May and Ocean. We learn, of course, in the season finale, series finale. Excuse me. They're not twins. I guess they're just. And again, that was something that kind of bugged me back and forth. Like, well, what are they? That was the whole thing. Are they twins? Are they sisters? Are they one entity that's chi? Like, are they? It's like all this stuff, and just again, spoiler alert at the very end. In the end, May doesn't remember Osha.
Yeah, it felt weird. Like this Virgins was such a big thing for Soul to be able to be like, yes, this is and I couldn't prove his existence without having both of you there. And yet, even afterwards, I still felt like, okay, so what do you exactly mean that they're like the same person but split? Okay, I don't, sure. How that's different from a clone, where it is, but this is just somehow one person split in two, but is not a clone. It is
Right.
just two beings that should be one. I don't know. I still don't understand the importance of it, the consequences, why it was so significant. It just felt like this is a show that kept on wanting to tell, like, do way too many scenes of, like, I'm going to tell you this. Oh, I'm interrupted. And that happens so often throughout this whole series.
I think maybe that's because that's the lead, right? That's the lead. That's as they call the A story, right? It's these two girls, right? That gives us that was what we were told, like to follow that. We have those climactic scenes where they get separated, and he chooses one, and the one goes down. Like, but now in the end, like you said, we're left with all this kind of like, well, still don't know nothing, and I'm like, she doesn't remember Osha at all. And she's being sent on a quest. That's another thing we'll talk about in a second. But it's like, and she kills Soul. which is another thing that surprised me. This series was like, it reminded me of the TV show Oz, which is on HBO, because every week somebody would die and it could be a main character. Like it was like no one was safe. And on some level, that's ballsy. I get it. That's gutsy. On some level, it's like you're following a character, and they get killed because prison's rough. That's all. That was their whole thing. Even Sopranos. Well, I mean, I remember they killed Drea. Oh my god! I was like, I can't believe they're gonna do that to her, and then she's crawling for her life, and I'm like, they're gonna kill her. Like it was just crazy. Like it's in some ways you like. I kind of get it. Even lost it a couple times. Ooh, when Libby got killed by accident, I was like, oh my god. I mean, it's just there's all kinds of stuff. I get it. On this series, though, I'm like, you're killing off the good characters, the characters I'm actually curious about. Souls, when I'll be curious, I want to know more about him. I want to know
Yeah.
I want to know. Like he was set up to be this guy who was with the passion and all this stuff. I'm like, she doesn't remember killing him either. That's the thing too. She doesn't remember killing him, but that's the whole thing. They have this big fight, like these weird fights where why are they fighting each other? Like it just wasn't. It was weird to be frank. Anyway, go ahead.
I feel like the challenge is that the actor playing Saul from Squid Games, with English
Yes,
being
yes,
his first language, uh, I think that did not serve this character as well as it could have. I mean, it definitely it resulted in more of a deliberate and slow sort of way that he talked, which I think did not help some of the scenes that
yeah.
that perhaps somebody that was more comfortable with the English language may have been able to hit different sort of notes in
Yeah.
those scenes that may have helped uh, make me more invested instead of being more distracted.
Although Squid Game 2 is coming out at Christmas, apparently. So
Yes.
I can't wait.
Very excited for that. Yes,
Can't wait.
I look forward to seeing what he does in that.
Yeah, can't wait. Can't wait.
Yeah,
Uh,
and it's a shame because I'm sure everybody would love to be in a Star Wars show. We've talked about that many times. Both of us would. That would be so awesome.
yes.
And to have an opportunity like that, I could understand why he would be excited to be able to do that.
Hmm.
It's just I just felt like, you know, I almost rather would have had him just use subtitles for him. Like everybody else could understand him, and we just had subtitles.
Okay. Yes.
That would have been great. And so he could have just spoken in his in a language that he was comfortable with and be able to act in that language. And I think maybe that could have maybe then given this character something more.
I like that. I actually like that idea. Yeah, but he's a character though. I mean, I was interested in. He's a character I was like, want to know more about. And even the way Homegirl was talking about him later, after talking recanting some other stuff to May, that he went dark for your sister, but then it's like, well, he kept saying, but it's not really your sister, and I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. But I was more like, I was interested in him a little more, he did have such passion in the series, like he was really feeling this, and that he was doing the right thing, and he killed
I
him.
feel like that was like the stickiness there of what happened 16 years ago in the story
Right.
when they originally visited the witches, where he thinks that the mother is, as she's kind of disincorporating, and he looks over at May and sees her kind of breaking apart as well. The way I read it for me is that he did not know what was going on. Like, was she dissolving her? Was she harming her in some way? So that's why he attacked the mom.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I wanted that to be explained to Osha in the present, or even May as a reason for why he did. Not that it would excuse his actions, but at least he was explaining why he felt he needed to act in that moment because he thought that May was in danger. Uh, that never happened. And it was just like, oh, well, Soul killed our mom and didn't tell you about it. And now he's a bad guy. And, you know, and he spent 16 years never telling you the truth. And now he's going to pay for it at the end.
Yeah, definitely. And so I mean, I don't know. And of course, we have Homeboy, who was back in the final episode, I keep the final episode. I keep saying what was the season? I was just saying season finale. It was the final episode. May Jacinto's back, of course, and looking hot. I'm sure for you guys who think he's hot, back in there. And of course, I mean, another character But I wonder if they're going to try to do something with him somewhere else because his character caught on the two faces of him, so to speak, and that's always interesting. That's a Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker deal, right? So I mean, what do you think? I mean, and again, at the very end, it's him and her and May with the lifesaver, like looking out to the ocean or whatever. I guess to go find who the homegirl's looking for or whatever. And Baby Yoda, I mean, and Baby Yoda, and Yoda back of his head shows up in the back of his head. Master, I can tell you, it's like it's Yoda. That didn't even excite me. It didn't even excite. I wish it excited me, but I was like, okay, that's how they're tying it in. But that whole thing with him now in the last episode to where we finally had this turn. So now it's kind of getting exciting. Like, okay, he's gonna be really dark, but there's no show for him. That's it. I mean, what are you thinking? What are you thinking?
Yeah, that's I mean, ultimately, I think if you look at the Acolyte, you have to look like, for me, are the two, which it seems like May and Osha are central characters, because it's a mystery soap opera around, revolving around the two of them. And I just didn't find them, or at least the way they were presented, as compelling as I wanted to be. And so I found Soul, uh, and the other three Jedis and their tragic story, as well as Kymer and his quest to find an acolyte, as well, much more interesting as well too. And whatever this hidden past was between him and Venestra, uh, that she thought he was dead, but finds out that he's not at the end. I found all that much more interesting than anything going on with May and Osha, and so I was I'm bummed that we won't get a chance to see. Who knows if that story will continue elsewhere.
Okay.
Uh, I would hope that Lucasfilm realizes, like, oh, at least this character caught on. It's maybe worth continuing something with him. Because I mean, I'd be curious to see more of his story.
I would greenlight him something for him, whether it's a mini series, series or his own spinoff series, his own, or even just like a I don't know a mini movie or something. I don't know. I would greenlight it and get it written.
Because I felt like Marvel got in a really good place a couple years back where they did like the special presentation for on Disney Plus, whether it was the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special or is the Werewolf by Night Halloween kind of special thing, where it was just anywhere from like 60 to 90 minutes. That was it. And then it was done. It was just a one-off. Fantastic. You don't need to have 8 episodes of a series
Nope,
where it can drag, like, or six, like Obi-Wan. Sometimes, just a nice tight 60 or 90-minute story. Maybe all you need of a character to just tell a really good story and get
yeah,
fans excited.
I agree. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. And I mean, I felt like this series it went in, it went in hard. It really wanted to give us something. I know many folks were like they liked the whole lightsabers and all that. There's some great choreography in there and stuff. Okay, that's fine. Um, but again, I'm trying to think of the series as a whole now. Now I'm trying to look at it as like, okay, this is a series, not just a season. So to me, it just feels like a lot of stops and starts and pieces. Doesn't feel like a cohesion as a series to me. Like a full like just watch this season, you'll be fine. You can actually watch. You could watch Boba Fett, I guess, and kind of get there's a beginning and an end, basically, so to speak. You could watch that series. It's a little cuckoo. So you could just watch that and be okay. Obi-Wan, same thing. I mean, it's kind of like part of something, but you could kind of watch that. I don't we can watch this and be like, I mean, does it have it? Is, I mean, it ends on a cliffhanger, obviously, but besides that, like in this different episodes, I don't know. I feel like it's not a full good great series.
Yeah, I feel like there was just this maybe could have benefited by, I bet you, being a 6 episode series and being more compact, because there was just, as we've talked about, too many, like, oh, I have to tell you something, or here's the reason why I didn't say anything. Oh, something else come up and I can't continue this conversation at this point. Too many times, when you go to that well too many times, I feel like you lose the fans at that point. It starts feeling drawn out and padded,
Yes,
where it's just like, boy, let's knock out a few of those, tighten it up a little bit, and just make it a more uh, streamlined and efficient episode and story count.
yeah, just tell it. I mean, again, folks, Many of these shows we know they do between 22 sometimes and 48 minutes. They vary in length. It's almost like that's cute. But in some of these series, they just need to say, okay, we're gonna make them all 35 minutes. I just make it say this and just pack it in full of content. I think instead of this kind of cutesy, oh, okay, we're gonna do. I'm like, no, let's just do it all where it's just like they're all 35 minutes and just pack it full of just stuff. I guess which they should do nowadays. I'm kind of this whole cute thing. Like, this one's only short and this one's longer. I get for some storytelling, it's great. Like in this series, to me, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about having just a set amount of time each episode, 42 minutes, and knowing that you've got to hit that and knowing as a watcher when you're viewing it, you're just kind of used to like, oh, if I turn on Only Murders in the Building, I'm going to get 38 minutes. Or if I turn on something like this, I'm always going to get a 42 or a 50-minute episode. There's something just nice knowing that. I feel like Lucas of any of the Disney Plus series, they swing wildly from incredibly short in the 20s sometimes all the way up to close to an hour or maybe even a few minutes past that. And it can just go wildly in between those two.
Who was your favorite character of the series?
The one I was wanting to learn more about would have been Keimer. I thought him the most interesting to and bummed that we did not get a chance to dive more into that. And I felt like the bummer part is I don't think the show really set up that I didn't find the tragedy of what happened on that planet 16 years earlier so tragic that it would have caused everything that happened where the Wookiee Jedi went into seclusion, the other one took a vow of silence. Uh, we've got Carrie Ann Moss doing her thing, and then Soul still training people, but I don't know. I wanted to see more of that, or even the scene where if we've learned that Carrie Ann Moss's character was the one that kind of forced Osha out of the Jedi Knights. Like, let me see those scenes. Let me see how, uh, how the tragedy of what happened on that planet kind of, and the ramifications of that, how it kind of tore those four Jedi apart. Uh, would have been, I think, maybe more helpful to making me more to care more about the story.
Yeah. CB Folk 5.0 says Dave and John Favreau should be the only ones allowed to create stories.
Yeah, I don't want to say that, I mean, because like there are so many fans out there that love Star Wars as much as the fans do, that are fans themselves, that have grown up watching since some kids and have great stories that they think they would love to tell with these characters. So I don't want to just say it can only be Dave and John. I feel like that's just too narrow. Certainly because and we can't just say when we look at the Book of Boba Fett, not the most successful series in our opinion. And then you look at Andor, incredibly great.
Yep,
Tony Gilroy has done a phenomenal job on that,
I agree.
and the people around him. So I feel like you can't just narrow it down to only those two because they themselves have their own pluses and minuses within that.
That was so funny is in some of the books, there's some really good writers. There's some really good female writers actually in these books. He goes, yeah, it's just that it's what we're used to. The first few ones that everybody loved, it was created by them, obviously. It was written by them, created by them. I get Mandalorian and all that. So I get that too. I get it. It's kind of what you know. But yes, I'm with Frank. I like to think that other folks, I mean, I look at shows like Cobra Kai. It's like apparently they're doing it correctly. There's other shows out there who are doing it correctly. I mean, they're doing it in ways that people are really enjoying them, and they're mixing fan with something new. And I just think that Star Wars, this was something that what Frank said earlier. This is early. We're talking something early in this Star Wars universe. There's a lot we could mine from that, and also connect it to the future that we do know. There's several ways to do that both ways. So I don't mind being interested in new characters. That's fine. I have no problem with that if they're compelling. I think the problem is for me was the acting.
Yeah,
I
and
was.
and nothing that somebody like a creator that comes to Star Wars is going to write in a vacuum. I mean, there is so many layers of approvals from
That's true.
both Disney, from Lucasfilm, especially Lucas, where they may have their reasons for you not to want to use certain characters or tell certain stories about certain characters for a variety of different reasons. And so, whatever your great idea is, it's more, I can almost guarantee that whatever idea you come with them, you're going to only leave with, at best, 85 to 90 if on a really good one, uh 85 to 90% of your original idea kind of
Yeah,
presented
that's
on
true.
screen.
That's true. That's true. Frank's correct. It's true. He knows. We know. Um, I think you mentioned this guy in the chat's mentioning a person in the chat's mentioning the animation. Yeah, that's something totally different. Right? That's a not everybody watches the animated series either. Some watch them, some don't. It's one of those weird things too. Some folks only watch live action and that's it. Um, the live action can be good, and I think it's the series looked like Star Wars. It had Star Warsian. That's my word I always use. Backdrops and backgrounds. That part I have no problem with. Costuming, cinematography, the whole thing, all that to me was fine. I had no problems with any of that. I thought it was great. But I look at series like Andor or like series where we had someone like Princess Leia. The girl who played Leia was so good. Like we were invested. So like child and teen stories can happen also and be really good. I really do think it goes back to part of the writing and then part of the acting. I think it's both. I wasn't compelled by Homegirl who was the lead. I just wasn't. I thought it was cool. I liked it. Look at everything. I just wasn't drawn in as I wanted to be.
And I feel like it's tough with the show. Like the first season of Mandalorian, I think the way it kind of resonated is that it was, there were little bits that kind of carried throughout the season, but overall it was kind of like, hey, I've got a mission of the week. I'm just going to explore a different planet and get involved in something else here, which was exciting. You're just seeing all these different slices of the Star Wars universe presented to you. And then, like every series, you start building your own continuity, and then that's the risk. Where do you start kind of just falling into like, I'm only telling stories that kind of forward our mythology, or can we just tell one-off engaging episodes? I mean, like X-Files. I mean, that was a series that kind of rotated between mythology episodes and then just Monster of the Week episodes. But to the point where fans enjoyed more of the Monster of the Week stuff than they did about the mythology, because the mythology got so convoluted because Chris Carter was like, how, well, I mean, the show's got to keep going on and on and on. So I can never really wrap up the conspiracy and the mythology. So I've got to keep coming up with ways to twist it and turn it. And fans by that at a certain point were just like, enough, enough. Just give me like cool, creepy monsters that Mulder and Scully are dealing with every week.
Oh, that's my show. That was my show though. It was. I loved it. Remember that
So
we
like
loved.
for like the Mandalorian, I mean, I
Yeah.
can understand why fans were like, "Hey, I just want to see, Mando and Grogu dealing with, like a different bounty that he's trying to hunt each episode, and that's cool. And I don't need to know about the dark saber and Mandalorian history and mythology and all this stuff too. So, I can see why people have had their frustrations as the longer the series has continued.
I'm curious about the Mando and Grogu movie that they're doing. So I forgot somebody said they were on it. I find some famous actors going to be in it. So I'm just like, this is interesting. I'm curious to see what this. It could be really good. It could be just a fun little whatever that is.
I
Yeah.
hope so. I mean, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I would love it. And now it seems like Pedro Pascal's got the best gig where he can just let stuntmen just do all the acting, and he just shows up in the booth and just drops the dialogue.
Well, he's busy doing what was it, Last of Us or the other show? He's a huge hit. It's so
Yeah.
funny that he's getting so much attention from that show. But he's like he's doing Mandalorian for years. So he's like he has the best. You're right, it's the best of both worlds. He's working it out. No, Frank is
And
right because I watch shows like Lost, which got a little lost, I think, in there. Twin Peaks, which got a little lost on there too. I think that the concepts are there and they're good, and somehow they get so convoluted that you just kind of go, okay, I don't even. I And I'm a huge Twin Peaks fan, so I mean, I love the first season. Second season, okay. The reboot, didn't like it. So this is me. X Files on side notes. The first reboot, I hated that ending. Hated it. Hated it. But the second, I liked the ending to that. But the first, I'm like, he's already been abducted before. Like, what are we doing? That's not a story. That's not a story. Let me started, Frank. I love X Files. Let me start it. That's one of my shows. But no, I think with Star Wars, and like I said before, I mentioned I opened the show with Frank saying, I think I'm realizing maybe not every story's for me. I'm always open because I said there were shows I was not excited about that I ended up liking. So I'm open to new Star Wars. I'm a Star Wars freak, so I love Star Wars stuff. So I'm always going to be interested in see what's going on. But I think I'm realizing maybe not every story is for me. Maybe not every story is going to grab me the way I hope they do, and that's just life. I think it's just life. So like I said, again, I wouldn't give this like an F or I would give it like a B minus maybe or a C plus as a series, but I don't hate it. It just wasn't exciting to me. I couldn't latch on to anybody long enough to feel something.
I feel like it's tough with any kind of mythology driven series or existing IP series that you can't bank on yourself getting multiple seasons to tell your story. And so, whenever it's like, oh, we got to slow play it in season one because we're just world building and we'll tell this part of the story in season two. Like even Star Wars is vulnerable to that. Like you look at the Acolyte. It felt like as much as there was press ahead of time saying we told the story we wanted to tell this season, I don't know. I felt like there was still stuff that was left up in the air that you would have wanted to follow up in a season two.
Yes,
Uh, so, I feel like and considering how they kind of padded stuff out this season, I think they could have easily truncated it and told a more done in one season sort of story. Because there's no guarantee you're gonna ever get that second season.
that's true too. Thank you, CB folk, for your $5 super chats. Appreciate that. No, Frank, I agree with you. You can tell a good story in one season. You can. You can totally tell a complete story in one season, and even leave people wanting more. There's a way you can do that, and I think there's no problem with that. And I just think they didn't do that. If that was the story you want to tell, I feel like there's some stuff missing. I don't. To me, again, I'm looking back going, I can't look at it as a complete season. That it's like from start to finish, that was a good season. I
Yeah.
can't say that. I really can't say that. I don't feel like I can say that.
No, it's a bummer. It's like I don't want them to take, a women-led Star Wars series, absolutely a
Yeah.
viable thing.
Yes.
Set in different eras, viable, absolutely viable. It's just maybe for whatever reason, yeah, I know there's a lot of internet backlash against this series and a lot of review bombing, which is unfortunate. It's just,
Yeah.
not my Star Wars, not my Star Wars. It's just like,
They're all Star Wars.
yeah,
This was Star Wars too. It's all Star Wars. It just may not be my favorite piece of the Star Wars puzzle, but it's Star Wars. And I didn't. And for me, the interracial cast, mixed race cast, didn't bother me or excite me either way. It's like they had actors who were good, and they looked how they looked, and I was fine. They had actors who weren't as good, they looked how they looked, and I was fine. It didn't. None of that. It didn't make me happy or sad or excited. It was just like, okay, well, Star Wars should be multiracial on some level, just because and different looks and different sizes. I mean, that's just kind of how that is. Seeing a Wookiee was exciting. You
yeah.
don't see it very often in many series. So we get to see one in the series. That's kind of fun. I want to know more about him. I want to know more
Thank
about that
goodness we
stuff.
didn't. We sure didn't get to know anything really about him.
We sure did. We trust and believe. I would
Ugh.
write a story for him. A story for him somewhere. Like, give us something about him. I mean, like, there's again, they're trying to create these little universes on these shows, which I love. I love that kind of stuff. So let's like this is not Andor. We learned some backstory about some of the characters. They told us some of their backstory. It's not like Frank said. It's not just takes a scene. We don't need a fucking episode. Just take a scene. See a scene. Show this. Okay, now I get it. Now I get why so and so is acting the way he's acting. Got it. We say it on soaps all the time. It's like give me a one scene that will explain everything away.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. The big climax of this episode is finally Osha confronting Soul
Right.
uh, for what happened 16 years ago and for never telling her the truth.
Right.
And that's when she taps into all the rage that she said she had earlier that prevented her from becoming a Jedi. And she force chokes
Mm-hmm.
Soul to death.
Yeah.
And what I don't mind that as a story beat, but what bothered me about that scene was just her expression while she's doing it. It was just so, I don't know, for me it did not read like the expression I wanted to see in that moment of somebody discovering this ability, but also caring about this person, but being feeling that they've learned that they've been lied to by this person. There's all these emotions and feelings in that moment, and just her face was just so kind of, to me, came off as like expressionless in
I
that,
agree. But
and
even
it
with
just
that,
blew me.
even with that, Frank, it was like I wasn't invested yet. It wasn't long enough for me to be invested. It wasn't heavy enough for me to invest it. I didn't. You're right. I did not see. I didn't see. You all know at home, and he knows it. When someone is feeling all that emotion, a good actor will pull that up there, and you feel it, and you are in it. Even in bad storylines, there are times when an actor does something, you're like, okay, that's good. I'll give them that. They ate, as they said, the kids say, they ate that scene. Okay, I got it. That one's good. It was she didn't muster up enough for me, and maybe that was an acting choice or whatever. I don't know, but like I agree with you. I just didn't the big climax, and I didn't feel nothing. No, it didn't work. It just wasn't. It. I watched it as a scene, and then it was done. I was like, oh dang, he's dead. Okay, that's it.
Yeah,
I was like, and the guy in the chat's like, yeah, no, I like Saul. I think actually played Saul. We were saying it a little earlier. We like, but it just wasn't everything it should have been. I mean, it just wasn't.
yeah, because I mean, I just felt like that ties into what I said earlier. I felt like that the tragedy of 16 years ago just never really was, like, I thought, told as well as it could have, nor like the fallout and the of the four Jedi
Right.
amongst each other, and the relationship with Osha was never really shown to me. I mean, I rather would have spent less parts of them being interrupted from telling the truth and give me more flashbacks about what happened after this, after they got back to Coruscant. They've got Osha into training for the Jedi, but it starts, the secret of them keeping what happened starts fraying the four of them apart, and how all four of them start spinning off in different ways. I wanted to see that. I thought maybe that would have helped me be more invested by the end of the last episode when Osha and Saul come together. Uh, now that she knows the truth.
That sounds
Maybe.
good to me, Frank. All that sounds good. That sounds good to me. We didn't get that, but that all sounds good to me.
All right, let me get back into my time machine and
Yes,
head
to go back there like Frank. That all
back
sounds to
3
me. All
years
sounds great.
ago. Boop, boop,
You
boop, boop,
know,
boop.
exactly. Last time, noticed everything you said. I mean, I would love to see that. Sounds fine to me, I guess. But that did not happen. I really don't know what else to say. I don't. Is there anything you really want to add? I don't know. I'm
No. And I know that our enthusiasm is varied on the various series that we've covered here on JLJ Media for all the Star Wars shows. But that still doesn't mean that I don't want to see more shows. Skeleton Crew's up next.
yeah.
I'm down to check it out and go for the ride and see what it is. And I go into each series hoping that I'm going to enjoy it, and bummed. I'm not angry, but I'm just bummed if it doesn't quite meet the expectations I had for it.
I agree with Frank. I mean, no, I'm a Star Wars freak, so I'm always checking out. I bought a Star Wars book on when I was on the road. I was at a half price books, Frank, and I was
Ooh.
looking at stuff, and I saw this thing I'd never seen before. I grabbed it, and whatever. And so I know I like Star Wars, so I'm with Frank, and I know John. I can speak for John and for Kim. We enjoy the content in general. We're excited when something new is coming out, and JLG Media is your place. We will always. I mean, I will always be doing Star Wars content in the shows. So same thing. We go into it hoping it's gonna be amazing. We go into it just hoping. I mean, I went to Andor thinking I'm not gonna like it. To tell you the truth, I mean, I was not excited at all. My favorite so far in the series. So I mean, so I'm saying I can be turned around. I can be sold, right? So I didn't forget we can be sold. Give us something good. I can be sold. But again, to me, it's not the worst. The series, not the worst. I think some are a little worse than this. But I'll get a C plus, maybe B minus. I just think there were, like Frank said earlier, there were some good bones in it, but then it just wasn't enough to make a good soup.
For me, I am like you. I think like Star Wars, I'm constantly chasing the feeling that I had with Andor,
Yeah.
being so pleasantly surprised and blown away that
Yes.
it exceeded everything that I wanted. And so that's the kind of feeling that's the way I go into a show and with the feeling I want to hopefully get from any Star Wars show that I engage with. And so so far Andor's only hit me in that way. And I'm wanting, I'm always hopeful that the next Star Wars product will hit me in that same fashion.
I will say for me, Andor and Mandalorian season two.
Mm,
I got a little teary eyed at the end. Spoiler alert! If you're gonna watch, spoiler alert, when Luke comes to take. I mean, it
that's
was
true.
everything. It was
Yeah.
everything. But with that show, there was some issues with that show too. But overall, I enjoyed seasons one and two. And season two, I would say I liked that one the best. I did like it. So that and Andor both gave me good feels. And there are parts where Ahsoka I liked also very much. I liked very much. So I don't want to leave that out either. We've done folks. We've done all of them. They're on here. And I mean, again, we are excited when they come out. We are not the gatekeepers at all, like some other people are. We just tell you what we feel when we see them. We tell you what we think and how we feel about them. That includes John Duffy and Kim McAndrew and Frank Moran and myself. And I guess we're going to end it here, Frank. We're going to end it here. That's it, kids. I guess that's it, Frank. I mean, there's no more Acolyte, so I guess
There's
we'll
no
see
more
what
Acolyte. Yeah, they're never. Maybe they'll pick up the story in a comic or a novel.
happens.
Yeah, or maybe we get surprised in a year from now they roll out a Disney Plus series of Kymer pursuing his dreams of being, a Sith. Who knows?
I keep wanting them to ask me to write for a show. I'm waiting, Lucas. Hire me. I'll write my own show. Right? Also, like I say, rest in peace to a place that's been around for decades, and it's finally gone. Actually, which I'm kind of sad about. That's Jeffrey's Comics here in Los Angeles. It's been around. My brothers used to go there all the time after school, back in the early 1900s. We used to go over there and get comic books, and it was by the 405 freeway. And it was in I guess it's Torrance. It's Torrance. But it's gone.
Ugh.
And I'm just kind of sad. I'm sad to see that. I'm always sad to see that. But I'll tell you, I was across the country. I said half price books. They're all over the Midwest. They're still out there selling stuff. They have all kinds of comics. I like through them, all the comics. But I just want to just rest in I love bookstores and comics. I love all that stuff. I don't want the record stores. I don't want them going anywhere. But unlike records who are making a total comeback, I guess comics aren't, Frank.
I still and that is a shame, but like any good bookstore or any great comic store, I love visiting them anywhere I travel because there's just much like a Star Wars TV show, there's that hint of like there or that the thrill of discovery, like
Yes,
to be blown away by something you're going to find in that store, some book, some comic that you've not seen or you've always wanted to find. Uh, that's the part that always excites me and it still does to this day.
me too. No, I said me too. Thanks, Frank. So, if you want to watch us until the next Star Wars series, Frank and I do no, we don't. We do General Hospital. The General Hospital mini spotlight. We recap General Hospital. We'll be back this Sunday. And this month will be our 9-year anniversary. And I'm planning something for Frank. He doesn't know what's going on. I'm planning something for him.
Lap
It's gonna
dance?
it's gonna be John J. York and a speed okay. No,
Yes. Yes.
it's gonna be Steve Austin. Okay, no, I'm planning something for you, Frank, to say thank you. But that's 9 years this year. Later this month will be 9 years. I've known you almost 10, so it's kind of crazy.
Best 9 years of my life.
I said you're my longest relationship. That actually works. Um, Everybody, thanks for watching our shows. We really do appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time.